I'm probably beginning to sound like a broken record when I keep saying I'm just going to say a little blurb on this one point. So, I'm going to say one little blurb on this point. Okay. This is going to go back to this series of how Israel and U.S. lie so much to everybody all the time. And then they blame Russia. So, this particular section is talking about the relationship between Zionists and Georgia very closely as supported by Israel's rebellion in Georgia against Russia and provided the sophisticated weapons and the reluctance of the Minister of Defense of Georgia holds Israeli citizenship. So this is just like with the U.S. having so many dual citizenships in Congress and the Senate and Supreme Court, which used to be illegal. Those with dual citizenships in Congress and Senate should be made to give up their Israeli citizenship. Now, when dual citizens of other countries, especially Arab countries, start getting voted into Congress or Senate, selected, will that motivate the American people to stand together against dual citizenships ruling what Americans do? I don't know, I know Americans are busy. I used to be there, but I also used to take the time to find out what was going around. And I used to be a corporate manager. I had like 2,000 people under me. And I worked 16-hour days. And I still managed to read a little bit to find out what the hell was going on and to get involved in things. So Americans didn't lose their rights. But the falling away and the fading away, in my mind I'm thinking, with what we know about how the U.S. military wiped out all those small towns in the U.S. and just killed all those people, to the propaganda, to the fluoride, to the chemtrails, sometimes I just think Americans just can't help themselves because they're too drugged by their own government to do anything about it. But anyways, the point to this is, and I just did again, is that here you have proof Israel caused the rebellion in Georgia. This particular document goes on discussing how Israel is going to attack Iran's facilities. Caracas keeps coming up. There was a time when Venezuela was an ally of the U.S. Now, it's not clear if Caracas said no, but there were plans that the U.S. and Israel was just going to take over the Caracas area. The other interesting thing about Caracas is that is where Israel used to traffic a lot of children through before Chavez came to power, and he put an end to it, and so did Maduro. And that's why the U.S. and Israel hate them, because they put a dent in their child trafficking agenda. Oh yeah, in this particular, and Saudi Arabia may have changed their mind because there was that big coup that Trump helped with to jail all the Saudi royals that were friendly to Iran. Saudi Arabia would not let Israel use their air bases to strike Iran, and that was probably why Trump got into that coup and got those royals friendly to Israel imprisoned. Okay, so discuss in here. This has been going on for almost 70 years, the U.S. and Israel discussing how they're going to wipe out Iran. You always hear the propaganda of Iran saying that Israel should be wiped off the map. They haven't actually said that, and maybe recently, but because I'm not up to date on anything recent within the last month that Iran may have said, but they had never said they were going to wipe Israel off the map. It was quite the opposite for the last 70, 80 years, and that's always been in the plan, is to wipe out Iran. There is an interesting article in here too, or it's a document, where Syria was discussing that they knew about America's plans to Israel and America's plans to overthrow the Syrian government and what to do about it. And unfortunately, they were pretty helpless when all of Europe decided to go over there and kill a bunch of children. And once again, I do believe this proves our point about how the U.S. government, the military-industrial complex, along with the other countries, bombing the shit out of Syria. And the first thing that happened after that was all the, I shouldn't say all, a lot of children disappeared. A lot of children disappeared. And every time U.S. invades a country, a lot of children disappear. Anyways, they talk about attacking Iran from the UK, Caracas, Turkey. Turkey has said no many times. Israel, how many things Israel's been behind. Oh, they even had a moon strike in here. And this is all gibberish code. See, it talks about Israel has long-trained pilots in Turkey and smuggled into Georgia through the Turkish territory, warplanes and military equipment. Israel's espionage, and this is what they also do the same to the U.S. And we published on our last channel, actually, the U.S. military report about how Israel's espionage had been getting way out of hand, and they urged the U.S. government to do something about it. So the U.S. government fired all the military that was reporting on it and replaced it with dual Israeli citizens. Anyways, so Israel and the U.S. smuggled all those weapons and everything into Georgia, blamed it on Russia. Blame everything on Russia. Yeah, here's the one it's talking about. Israel says that Saudi Arabia was going to let them use their airspace was a lie, because they were going to really attack from Caracas. You know, Caracas is part of Venezuela. To this, Israel already trained pilots for the attack launched against Iran. Oh, did I make that point? Anyways, the espionage. I kind of went right over top of it. Okay. Stations to gather information about Iran in the territory of Jinabaj. I said that wrong probably. In continuing, Israeli spies posing as instructors, technicians, military advisors. You know, it just goes right back to where you cannot trust any of the Israeli dual citizens or people who were Israeli citizens and come to the U.S. or other countries because they're spies. The U.S. military reports also reflect that. I didn't remember if I said that or not because I'm tired and I may have just repeated myself. Anyways, well, I think I'm going to stop there because I'm kind of tired, but also we have, if I haven't put it out yet, the plans before the plans, and the plans have always been there. In the document regarding the Israeli takeover of all the Muslim countries, basically. And that was a big reason for the refugee crisis. And a lot of these countries knew it. I don't know if Germany knew it, but maybe so. But what I've been reading in these documents is basically Europe is going to become a Muslim territory. So they're just taking the Muslims out of the Middle East and sticking them in Europe to take over that territory as they let Israel genocide those who don't want to just give up their land to the Jews because they said their God said that it was their land. I mean, Israel is bloodthirsty, sacrificing of all things not Jewish and non-Jews. Their paranoia, their constant scheming and planning and stealing. You can only read these documents for so long before you just start throwing up. Because even though you know Israel is the land of pure evil, reading it over and over again, that they're plotting and scheming with the U.S., it just makes you want to throw up. It's so diabolical. And the worst part is, they make every American who's paying their taxes a part of it. Staining all of our souls with our tax dollars, giving them to Israel so they can just kill innocent children and their pets and their families. And they don't care. And the U.S. doesn't care. It looks like back in the Carter years, the U.S. actually cared. And I began that with saying we're going to be posting a